Hello, good morning and Happy New Year, and welcome to this, the first of my hopefully many forays into YouTube and the vinyl community. I'm Paul and this is my channel Circular Motion, and I am about to do the vinyl tag, which I'm assured is the best way to start all this kind of thing off. Full disclosure, I don't have a big collection and I don't know much about this, and the only reason I'm doing this is because I wanted to try something new this year, and I watch a lot of Dylan from Noble Records and the inimitable Michael Fremer over at Analog Planet, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to have a go, especially after Dylan's vinyl tag, where he was really, he offered a lot of words of encouragement for those of us that maybe have been long time lurkers and fancied dipping our toes in the water. So without much further ado, I'm going to jump straight into the vinyl tag. However, full disclosure, there are several questions. I don't have a white label, so I'm going to skip that one. I don't at this point have any bands, any girl band records. It's not any kind of, there's no sinister sexist reason for that. I just haven't found anything that I want to part with any money for yet. And there's another question I'm not going to answer, which is an album that people don't get, because I don't have anything I think that fits that bill just yet. If I get something, I might update it at a later time. But for now, I'm going to dive right in. Stay tuned. Okay, number one, a discovery in 2020. 2020 was the year I got into jazz, and particularly I like the trumpet stylings of John Coltrane. I found this on Amazon. Duke Ellington and John Coltrane with Elvis Jones, Aaron Bell, Jimmy Garrison and Sam Woodyard. Now this was quite a nice little discovery, because it's, it says it's on 180 gram vinyl, but it doesn't feel quite as substantial. However, it was only 12 quid. It's a very nice pressing. Sounds superb, and you got a free CD digipack of the album as well, so I can play it in the car, which is really good because I don't actually have a CD player. I've been digital for many years now, so this is why I don't have a big collection at the moment and why I'm slowly building it up. But this, I think it's 12 quid when I got it. I think if you go on Amazon now it's 13 or 14, but it's still available, and thoroughly recommend it. Give it a go. Number two, a quarantine buy. So for me, this was a revelation. It doesn't really give much away. If you know, you know. But this is Mr. Bungle. This is the Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny demos. So basically, the original members, Mike Patton, Trevor Dunn and Trey Spruance, before they actually got a record deal, they did this death metal demo tape way back when. And they've dusted the tapes off and they've re-recorded the music alongside Scott Ian from Anthrax and Dave Lombardo, later Slayer, and he's been doing all kinds of stuff, including film, which I think he did do with Mike Patton, I'm not sure, but anyway, he's a hell of a drummer, and Scott Ian is Scott Ian. This album for me is excellent. It kind of combines that quirkiness of Mr. Bungle with some really nice riffs. I had their first album as a cassette, maybe a CD. I had the Mr. Bungle demo tape originally, the old cassette at one point, and that was phenomenal, but then they kind of got a little bit marmitey after that, and I was definitely in the don't like them category because it was just a bit too inaccessible for me. But this is cracking. I got this from Germany, actually. I got it from a company called HHV. It's a 2-disc set on red vinyl, and it's very nice, and it sounds really nice too. It's nicely produced, so check it out. The album that you want to find in 2021. I don't have a visual because, like I say, all my other music's on digital download. I will see if my editing skills will allow me to stick a picture in at some point. However, the album, and it's not particularly highbrow album, but it's an album that I really like. It's called Modern Vintage by 6am, which is Nikki Sixx, formerly of Motley Crue and still with Motley Crue, and DJ Ashburn on guitars, and James Michaels doing the vocals, who formerly was a record producer, I believe, and some session musicians filling in the blanks. I think it's a really good album. It's their third album, and Nicky did actually liken it to Queen's Sheer Heart Attack in terms of the way it broaches a lot of different musical styles. I don't think it is as all-encompassing as that, but it's a nicely produced album. There are some killer tunes on there in my opinion, and so that is one album I'm hoping to find. I've only seen one copy of it, that is on eBay. It's still on eBay now, and I looked for this last year. It was 220 odd quid last year. It's down to 160, but I haven't seen it anywhere else. So if you know of one, hit me up. Okay, number 4, a box set. You can probably see behind me there, I've got just recently purchased the Queen Studio box set. Cheers. But I bought that this year. So one that I bought last year, sticking with the Queen theme, is this. Now this isn't an official release, it is a bootleg. Turns out that it's limited to 300 copies worldwide. I managed to pick this up in a local second-hand record shop, but it was brand new and sealed. So a little bit of background on this. Queen did a tour for the News of the World album in America. It wasn't an album that particularly brought them massive success. That didn't come until The Game and Another One Bites the Dust. But they did about 28-30 dates. This was recorded in Houston, in Texas. Now, the venue it was filmed at, apparently they filmed and recorded that, but they filmed a lot of their shows there. So if you go on YouTube, you can find quite a lot of bands with full concerts pro shot. Not the best quality, and not the best sound quality overall, but decent enough, you know, to keep you entertained for an hour. This is available in quite a few different formats. I've got a 10-inch and a 12-inch from Coda Records. They're not the full show, and the sound quality is taken, it's not brilliant because it's taken from a radio broadcast. There's a lot of top end on there, I don't know, there's not a lot of bottom end, so it just doesn't quite have that oomph. If you have Amazon Music, you can find this on there called The Millionaire Waltz, and that is a little bit of a better mix. It's still a radio broadcast, but it is a better mix than the Coda Records mix. This, however, as per the hype sticker in the box, this is a soundboard, a direct from soundboard recording. It's been specially remastered. It's on 3 discs on smoky grey vinyl. The box set itself comes in a nice colourful box. There are 3 discs, 2 posters, the hype sticker still in there, and you get this reproduction of the original tour programme, which is really quite nice. I paid 100 quid for this, which according to Discogs is reasonable, it's about right. This one is number 262 with a little hand stuck on sticker there, but like I say, this was still sealed when I bought it. It is the full show. It is a really nice sounding record. It's probably one of Queen's best live albums, ironically, because it's not an official release. It's certainly better than the shit that they just put out with Adam Lambert. But more of that at another date. Anyway, check it out if you can. If not, go on Amazon Music, listen to the digital streaming version. Okay, so number 5 we have a concept album, and I don't really have many concept albums on vinyl. A couple of Pink Floyd, but I think they're kind of like, you know, everyone expects you to go with those. So I'm going to go with something a little bit different. Kiss, Music from the Elder, which was an album that did divide fans quite a lot by all accounts. I had this back in the 80s and I sold it, but I loved it back then and I love it now unashamedly. It's very different to the usual stuff they were putting out sort of across the 70s and certainly the 80s. I think it's quite a mature record. There are some great songs on there and it's a great sounding album. You know, it did mark the beginning of the end of an era for them as things slowly started to decline. Sales wise, ticket sort of attendance wise, the band started to splinter. But for me, it's one of their strongest albums. But, you know, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one, they usually stink. But if you fancy something different, give this a go. Number 6, a record where a band or artist changed direction. This was, again, difficult because my collection isn't massive. You know, I've probably got lots of examples on on digital, but looking for a vinyl one, I settled with this Queen's 1982 What Space. This is my original copy from 1982. That's my dog just paddling around. Obviously Queen were known for their big production and their like over-the-top vocals and their pomp and circumstance on their records. You know, they were a very arrogant band, rightly so, because you know they were very talented. And this was a massive departure, straying as far off the rock track as they possibly could. You know, it was like more like funk. Freddie was hanging around in a lot of bars in discos in New York at the time, and Berlin, I believe, and he wanted to kind of capture that feeling. And so this album is a bit of an oddity, really. If you sort of take it in the context of the whole Queen catalogue, this one probably sticks out the most, like a big sore thumb. I love it. I love it. I think in the 80s, their albums, although, you know, strong still from a songwriting point of view, I think sound-wise, they just kind of rushed into the whole digital recording aspect, and I think there's too much compression. The albums don't sound that great. This sounds phenomenal. It sounds massive. I've got the reissue. That also sounds really good. And I've got this, and I've listened to it on that, and that also is really good. It is a really good album. There's some cracking tunes. There's one or two, you know, that maybe the world could have done without. But overall, this is, you know, it's one of my favourite Queen albums. So, yeah, if you get a chance, give it a listen. So, as previously mentioned, we've skipped question 7, which was the white label promo. I don't have any. Jumping straight into compilation album. So I got this last year after a lot of will I or won't I, and I'm glad I did. It's no secret to those of you that actually do know me, I am a huge Queen fan, always have been. The film, not so good, but the soundtrack album is really good. You know, there are some cracking tracks on here. The revisited Doing Alright is really nice. There's Keep Yourself Alive, Live at the Rainbow, Fat Bottom Girls Live in Paris, Now I'm Here from Hammy Odeon, Love of My Life from Rock in Rio. There's a nice little mix of We Will Rock You. But the thing for me that sets this album apart from some of the other albums in my collection is it's got Live Aid on. And I think it's the first time that Live Aid's been available officially on vinyl. And it sounds just delightful. Some of the other tracks, I mean, that the fourth side of the album has Live Aid, then it's got Don't Stop Me Now Revisited, which is a nice remix of that track, and The Show Must Go On. The way that this album's being mixed, it seems to have put a lot of emphasis on Freddie's vocals, particularly The Show Must Go On. My good friend Justin and I, we've listened to this version of The Show Must Go On. We've listened to a 12-inch single version of The Show Must Go On, so that's like, you know, 45 RPM. And we listened to the CD single, and the CD single actually comes out tops in terms of oomph. It really, like, you know, those drums properly cut through you. That's a little gripe, really. If you know, if you like Live Aid, if you know, like me, think it is one of the greatest live performances of all time, then this is a great album to have. Number 9, an album that tells a story. Now I have 2 for this, and I'll tell you for why, because it's all part of the story. I collected records back in the 80s, you know, me and my friends all did, and we didn't have a massive collection because we'd take pick like everybody else did, and we'd swap stuff about. And then CD came along, so I bought into CD. And then streaming came along and digital music, and I thought, wow, yeah, this is the way to go. You know, iPod, 40,000 songs, I can listen to whatever I want, create playlists, brilliant. And then one day, last year, I think it was last year, or maybe late the year before, I hadn't seen my friend Justin for a while, went round his house, and he's like my brother from another mother. Went round his house, and he said, oh, you know, you've got to listen to this, and he got himself a turntable. He already had a decent sort of sound. He's always had a decent sound system as long as I can remember, and he got himself some Dynaudio speakers. He managed to get them second hand. I think they were £2,000, and he got them for 700, so they were quite a bargain, and they do sound phenomenal. Anyway, he put this album on, and straight away I was like, what the hell? Even having, this is one of the first albums I ever bought as a record buying spotty teen. It sounded amazing, it blew me away. And then he played me Moby Dick off this, and that also, you know, he cranked it up. it was just like those drums were right there in the room. Phenomenal. And that kind of started me on this journey. And I've been out and I've slowly, I've upgraded. My system isn't the best in the world. It's still, I'm sure there's some of you out there that have probably got an amplifier that's worth more than my complete system, or a turntable that's worth more than my complete system. But for now, it does me. I've spent a little bit of money on it, so it's not, bottom end, but it's hardly mid-range or even top of the range. But anyway, what this rediscovery of sound has brought for me is a wider appreciation for more music, including jazz. I've been buying records by bands I would never have thought I would ever have listened to, including like ABBA, Adam and the Ants, all kinds of stuff. So it's this for me has been just like a revelation, and these two albums are really kind of what kicked off that whole thing. So there you go, 2 for the price of 1. I'm going to skip over question 10, an album that needs a vinyl pressing, and I'm going to, not skip over it, but I'm just going to hark back to Modern Vintage, because I think that album needs to be on vinyl, personally. So we'll move on to number 11, which is an uncommon album. I go to a second-hand shop in the town here in Darlington, where I live in the UK, and it's called Record Hut. It's in the marketplace if you're ever this way. It's got a great selection of stuff, and I always like to make a random purchase. I have a look through and I'll buy things that I think, yeah, I'm after that, but I always try and make a wildcard purchase, and this was one of them. So, Little Bo Bitch, never heard of them before, and this came out in 1979, so I think they were a one album wonder. Those of you that may be tuning in from America may recognise the album cover, but not the name, because the record company quite rightly thought, we can't have that in America because, censorship and everything. American authorities, the powers that be, do tend to be a little bit sensitive about stuff like that, and they didn't think anyone would buy it. They didn't give, Americans credit for having, common sense or taste. So they changed the name to the Lonely Boys, and the album was called The Lonely Boys. It's a cracking album. It's really nicely produced. It's a really nice sounding album. It's kind of like late 70s, early 80s new wave punk, and it kind of gives me a little bit of a Joe Jackson vibe. And they were never going to set the world on fire, but it is a nice little album. So if you ever get a chance to catch up with that, give it a go. Number 12, Show an EP. So I do have the Garage Days EP kicking about somewhere, the Metallica one, but I'm going to go with this bad boy. Brian May and Friends, Starfleet. This is phenomenal for me. This is a really good album. It's an EP rather. 3 tracks. The story behind it is that Brian was, itching to do something. I think they were a band on hiatus after the quite poorly received Hot Space, and his son Jimmy at the time was into a Japanese show called Starfleet, which this is taken from. This is the Die X, because I watched it too at the same time, and so he thought, yeah, I'm going to record the theme tune to that. So not only did he think, yeah, I'm going to record the theme tune to that, I'm going to get on the phone to some of my showbiz mates and get them to come along. So we got the late great Eddie Van Halen to come along, Phil Chen, Alan Gratzer, and Fred Mandel, who played keyboards live for Queen quite often at that point, before being replaced by the inimitable Spike Edney. Starfleet itself is a great track. It's a nice little sort of reworking, and I think that's probably the one that's had the most work done on it on this album. The other 2 tracks, Let Me Out and in particular Blues Breaker, are excellent. The Blues Breaker itself is like a 12-minute homage to Eric Clapton, and it's just Eddie and Brian trading licks, and it is just superb. Honestly, everybody is just brilliant. It sounds like they just said, right, this is what we're going to go do. We go in the studio, we just record it all live, and then that's it. I think they mixed it a bit and then put it out, and it is excellent. So if you ever get a chance, in fact, actually, this could do with a reissue, not a vinyl pressing because it's on vinyl, but it could do with a reissue. I would certainly pay money for it to be in some kind of deluxe box set. Maybe some outtakes or some bits and bobs, but there you go. missed 12, which was the girl group one. We're gonna, sorry, 13, which was the girl group one. We're gonna jump straight into 14, which is an album cover you love. Now, there's loads of album covers. One of the greatest things about collecting records now is the albums themselves, the covers, you know, and the inner sleeves and the artwork and all the notes. You couldn't, you know, you got a CD and you had to have a magnifying glass to read some of the stuff. And then obviously with digital, you don't even get that. So, you know, it's a bit of a disappointment really. So to come back to it and to be picking up albums and being able to sort of sit and look at them and pore over them is great, you know, and I still get that buzz when I get an album and then I open it up and, you know, you want to read everything about it, you want to just inspect all the artwork. And so this album for me was, you know, this was I think one of the 4th albums I bought by this band. Retrospectively obviously because it's been out a little while, but it's this, Queen, News of the World. This is my original copy. I don't know whether it's an original pressing, I bought it in the 80s. But just, you know, artwork by Frank Frazetta or Frank Kelly Freeze, I can't quite remember. I think it's Kelly Freeze. Anyway, he was it was Kelly Freeze, and he was a pulp fiction artist. He did lots of pulp science fiction stuff in the 50s and 60s. And this was a cover of a book, and Queen, I think Roger Taylor, who was a massive science fiction fan, had seen it, and they said, yeah, let's get him to do it. And they kind of redid the cover based on that book. And there's Roger falling down. Ooh, there we go. And it is just brilliant. To market the album when it first came out, they had some little kind of mock-ups of Frank, as he's called, holding the album in record stores, and I think if you can find them, you know, there are still 1 or 2 about. They're worth a fortune these days. Sadly, I see that Funko have just brought out their own version of Frank, and it looks like shit, but what are you gonna do? I won't be buying one. But anyway, yeah, my favourite album cover. One of my favourite album covers. Number 15, an album you've listened to the most. So since I got back into vinyl, one of the albums that Justin paid me, not that day, but on another visit, was this. Not this particular one, but the reissue. And wow, fantastic. I mean, I've always liked Bowie, but I've never really been a massive fan until I heard this album around Justin's house, and it just, again, it blew my mind. Particularly 8-line poem and that little bit of guitar that leads into it, it just sounded so real, like it was in the room. So I've been out, I bought the reissue, and I was looking to find this in the Record Hut. This was 15 quid. It's not an original pressing, it's a 1980 reissue, but it still sounds really good, and it is in immaculate condition, which was, you know, something like this for that price, that was a dog shaking. You know, it was like a dream come true, and it does, and the reissue sounds beautiful, but this just slightly sounds a little bit brighter. There's a little bit more definition. I don't know whether that's just me imagining it or not, but yeah, this album is, you know, it's probably one of the best sounding albums I've ever heard. Produced by Ken Scott, legendary. I've got a Tubes album that he produced as well, which has that same kind. It's not as good an album as this, but it still has that same kind of nice sound, lots of definition. You can hear all the instruments rather than sometimes, you know, things can get a little bit muddy. So yeah. Brilliant. Actually, sticking with this for question 16, an album you most want an OG copy of. So I would go with this. You know, I keep looking to see if I can find one that's a reasonable price in reasonable condition. Obviously, they go for a lot of money when they're really mint. But I'll keep my eye open. Hopefully, I'll find one. I'll keep checking when I go into Record Hut to see what he's got. And I always take my phone with me and check on Discogs if I'm not sure about, you know, what it was, because Discogs is great if you haven't got Discogs. It's in terms of like information, it's a useful tool. So yeah, this is what I want an OG copy of, and even more OG than this one. 17, the last album you purchased. Now I'm thinking that I'm assuming that it's the last album you purchased in 2020, because I've bought a few this year already. But if we're sticking with that theme, that will be this, Miles Davis, legendary, a kind of blue album. I'd looked for this for quite a while actually. It seemed to be sold out everywhere. A friend of mine had recommended it to me, and because I don't know much about jazz, it's something I'm getting into. So I thought, right, I'll try and get it. Couldn't get it on Amazon, couldn't get it in HMV, tried everywhere, so I gave up. Just happened to pop into HMV at Christmas with some Christmas money burning a hole in my pocket, and I found this. Now this is a transparent blue pressing, and it's about as thin as a sheet of paper, and to be honest, it's piss poor. I paid, I think it was about 15 quid for it, so I'm not massively disappointed. If I'd paid like 30 quid or something, I would have been spitting. But yeah, it's not a great pressing, I don't think. And I've got another album since then, which is a compilation album from the Birth of Cool movie, and it does have one of the tracks in here on it. I can't remember which one, but a side-by-side comparison, that other pressing sounds a lot better than this. You know, the mid-range seems to distort quite a lot in some places, so yeah. And it's not my system, because everything else sounds fine. So yeah, great album, shit pressing, sadly. Yeah, so we've skipped 18, an album that people don't get, and we're going to jump straight to 19, which is a punk album that I bought in 2020. I'm just gonna, you know, this is the only proper punk album that I've got, I think, at this point in time, and it doesn't really need me to tell you much about it. So that's my dog moving about it, the camera's moving, and you can hear some clicking. Yeah, this is a reissue. Not anything remarkable. It sounds as good as it did sort of back in the day. It was never going to win any awards for production or anything, but yeah, you know, cracking tracks, Pretty Vacant, God Save the Queen, Anarchy in the UK, Holidays in the Sun, Problems. It's a great album. So you know, if you haven't got it, do yourself a favour, check it out, because it is, you know, it's iconic. The only thing that saddens me is that, you know, Johnny Rotten sells butter on TV sometimes. That's just as there's Bill Hicks would call him a of Satan's. I don't want to say it out loud because I don't know what I'll be dealing with on YouTube in terms of content and censorship. But yeah, not happy. But anyway, check it out. It's a great album. Okay, and finally, you'll be pleased to know we've got the favourite 2020 reissue. Now, I don't think I actually bought anything that was specifically reissued in 2020, but I did buy this, which is a reissue in 2020, so I'm going to go with this. This is the Beatles Sgt. Pepper album. This was a anniversary edition, remixed by, I think it was George Martin's grandson, remastered. James Martin, I want to say, but is he not the guy that does the cookery? Anyway, I'm not a massive Beatles fan, I'll be honest, and it wasn't until I just recently upgraded my turntable and my phono stage that I really kind of started to appreciate how amazing this album sounds. And this actual release is great, you know, it's got all the original artwork, it's got the little sleeve with all the little cut-out bits and bobs that you could you got with the original. Yeah, it is, and there's no, I mean, I don't deny the Beatles' place in the pantheon of music. They're just not a band that you know, like My Fire. You know, we're all different, so that's fair enough, but this album is phenomenal, and listening to this album makes me want to listen to more Beatles albums, so I'm going to do just that. Cool. Okay, that is that. We have been through the vinyl tag. Thank you for sticking with me. I know I drone on a little bit sometimes, I tend to waffle. I hope you've enjoyed it, and please, if you have, hit the like and subscribe button down below and come back again. I want to do these on a regular basis. Pretty soon the next one's going to be a review of this. I've got some good things to say and some bad things to say, so if you want to find out what, tune in again. So thank you, take care.